I wasn't supposed to be there that night. Normally I'd finish work, go home, heat up leftovers, and scroll until I fell asleep. But a friend canceled last minute, and I didn't want to head straight back to silence. So I stopped at the wine bar 2 streets over. Small place. Wooden tables, dim lamps, the kind of music you don't recognize but feels like you should. I sat at the counter, ordered the cheapest red on the menu, and tried not to look like someone sitting alone. That's when I heard laughter behind me, low, easy, a little sharper than the usual kind that floats around bars. I turned just enough to notice 3 women at the corner table. All a little older, mid-40s maybe. The kind of confidence that makes the whole place bend around them. They weren't loud, exactly. Just certain. I kept facing forward. Sipped too fast. Scrolled my phone like there was something urgent to read. But my eyes drifted back, and one of them caught me. Not in a gotcha way. More like she had already expected me to look. Dark hair, faint line of a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She leaned toward the other 2, said something I couldn't hear, and then, like it was rehearsed, they all glanced over. I froze, pretended to adjust the napkin in front of me. My thumb folded it, creasing it in half, then again. By the time I looked up, she was already walking over. "Don't mean to interrupt," she said, voice smooth but with that edge you get when you've lived enough not to waste time. "But you look exactly like what we've been missing tonight." I laughed too quickly, which made it sound nervous. "That sounds rehearsed." Her smile deepened, real this time. "You think we practice our lines?" "Maybe," I said, eyes flicking to her hands. She held her glass lightly, not like someone guarding it, more like someone who trusted gravity. She tilted her head. "So, are you going to make us look ridiculous standing here, or will you come join us?" I hesitated. My instinct was always no. Keep to myself, stay where it's safe. But the silence waiting for me at home felt heavier than their table did. So I went. They shuffled chairs, made space without a fuss. The other 2 smiled, warm but measuring. We traded names I barely caught, and then conversation began rolling like I'd walked into a river already mid-current. Stories about work, neighbors, travel. I didn't contribute much, mostly listened. But every time I did speak, her eyes stayed fixed on me, like she was trying to read past the words. I caught myself glancing at the empty space between her sleeve and wrist. At how she tapped her finger against the base of her glass whenever someone else was talking. Small things, but they stuck. When the night edged on and the room grew thinner, they ordered another bottle. I checked my phone. Blank screen. No missed calls. No messages waiting. The kind of quiet that followed me everywhere. She noticed. "You need to go?" I shook my head. "No. Just habit." She leaned back, studying me. The music changed, some old jazz number, and her expression softened. For a second, it felt like we were the only 2 in the place. And then, her phone buzzed. She read the message, slid it face down on the table. When her eyes came back to mine, they held something unspoken. "Stay a little longer," she said. And before I could answer, the thought landed heavy in my chest. This could be the start of something I don't know how to carry. I did stay longer. Longer than I meant to. What I remember most wasn't the wine, or even the way the 3 of them laughed like they'd been rehearsing it their whole lives. It was how she stayed angled toward me, even when the conversation shifted to things I didn't follow. Like she wanted me there, not just as an extra seat filled, but as if my silence mattered. At one point she asked casually, "Do you live nearby?" 2 blocks, I said. "Upstairs over the laundromat." Her eyes flicked with recognition. "That building with the crooked railing?" I laughed. "Yeah. Nearly breaks an ankle every morning." "Careful," she said, but softer now. Like she meant more than the stairs. The other 2 drifted into their own chatter, and it gave us space that felt like it shouldn't have been there. She told me she was divorced, said it quickly, like it wasn't a story she wanted to tell, just a fact to acknowledge. I nodded. Didn't pry. But my thoughts went racing. Divorced. mid-40s. Sitting here with me. I felt the heat of the age gap, like a line across the table no one else noticed. I thought of how it might look to anyone watching, her, confident and grounded, me, still figuring out what to do with my own evenings. She must have read something in my face because she tilted her head and said, "You look like you're calculating something." "Maybe I am." "Bad math?" "Complicated math." That made her laugh, small and low. Later, when the others excused themselves to the restroom, she stayed, swirling the last sip in her glass. "You remind me of someone I used to know. He used to sit just like that, shoulders tight, like the world was heavier than he wanted anyone to see. I didn't know what to do with that." I folded the napkin again, pressing the crease sharper. "Was he important?" Her gaze stayed on me longer than it should have. "More than I let myself admit at the time." Silence after that. Not awkward but weighted. My chest felt too tight, like I'd accidentally stepped into a role I didn't audition for. The night ended in fragments. Last call, emptying glasses, the shuffle of chairs. Outside, cool air cut the wine's warmth. She pulled her jacket tighter, paused like she wanted to say something else. Instead, she only brushed her hand lightly against my arm as she stepped past, just a passing touch. Except it wasn't. I watched her walk away with her friends, my sleeves still warm. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. I saw her again sooner than I expected. Grocery store, early evening. She was standing in front of the tea aisle, squinting at boxes like the words wouldn't settle. She noticed me first. "You," she said, smiling. "Do you drink tea?" "Coffee," I answered too quickly. "Mostly. But sometimes." Her hand hovered between two boxes. "Then tell me. Mint or chamomile?" I pointed at the chamomile. She tossed it in her basket without looking at the price, like my answer was enough. We ended up walking home the same direction, bags in hand. She slowed her pace, matching mine. It felt deliberate, though either of us admitted it. When we reached her building, she paused. "Tea?" she asked. Not an offer. More like a question she wasn't sure she wanted me to answer. I followed anyway. Her apartment was warm, books stacked sideways on shelves, a jacket draped over a chair. Lived in, but quiet. She filled the kettle, moved with easy precision, like she'd done this 1,000 times. I sat at the table. Watched her hands. She caught me looking once, and instead of pulling back, she let the silence stretch. "I don't usually," she started, then shook her head. "Never mind." "What?" "Bring people home." I nodded, not trusting my voice. The kettle whistled. She poured, slid a cup toward me. Steam curled between us. I wrapped my hands around it even though it was too hot. We talked about nothing, the weather turning, a neighbor's dog, the price of bread. But underneath, something pressed closer. Every pause held more than the words. At one point, she reached for the sugar, and her fingers brushed mine. Neither of us moved right away. Just that slight contact, too small to mean anything, too large to ignore. Then, knock at the door. We both startled. She stood quickly, almost relieved. It was one of her friends from the wine bar, dropping off a book. Voices exchanged at the door, cheerful, easy. I sat frozen at the table, the moment cooling fast. When she came back, her smile was different. Guarded. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, avoiding my eyes. "You should probably," she began. "Yeah," I said, standing before she finished. At the door, either of us moved first. She opened her mouth, closed it again. My heart was louder than the silence. I thought, just for a second, she might lean in. Or I might. But her hand only lifted slightly, hovered near my chest, then dropped. Half a gesture. Half a confession. And I left with the taste of chamomile on my tongue, wondering what would have happened if the knock had come 10 minutes later. We crossed paths again outside the laundromat. I was folding shirts in the harsh light, pretending not to care who walked by, when she stopped in the doorway. "You always do it like that," she asked, nodding at the stack in my hands. Like what? Precise. Like your filing papers instead of clothes. I shrugged. Keeps me busy. She stepped in, leaning against the doorframe. No jacket this time, just a loose sweater that made her look softer, almost undone. She watched me fold another shirt, and the silence stretched until I could feel the air bend. Finally, she said, "You didn't come back." I looked up. Back? After tea. Her voice wasn't accusing. Just stating. But something in me tightened. Didn't think I should. Her eyes stayed on mine too long. Then she laughed under her breath, shook her head. Maybe you were right. I wanted to ask what she meant, but my throat caught. Instead, I turned back to the laundry, smoothing the cotton flat over and over, like it would give me answers. She moved closer, just enough to blur the line between us. My friends, they'd say this is reckless. I forced a smile. And you? Her lips parted, but no words came. She sat down on the plastic bench by the dryers, elbows on her knees. For the first time, she looked unsure. I don't usually. She began, then stopped. A pause that carried too much. You remind me I'm not invisible. I don't know if that's good for me. Or fair to you. I set the shirt down, leaned back against the counter. My chest was tight, my hands restless. Maybe it's not about fair. Her eyes snapped to mine. Wide. Searching. For a second, either of us breathed. I wanted to close the space, to sit next to her, to say everything I'd been holding back. But I didn't move. She broke first, looking down at her hands. What would people think? The words were barely above a whisper. Does it matter? I asked too quickly. Her head tilted up again, sharp, like the question hit somewhere deep. But she didn't answer. The hum of the dryers filled the room, loud and relentless. I thought about all the reasons this was wrong, the age gap, the neighbors, the stares that would follow. But none of them felt heavier than the silence between us. I took a step toward her. She didn't move away. I started, but the word broke in my throat. She waited. Eyes steady. Breath caught. The moment was too close, too fragile. Like leaning over a cliff and wondering if you'll fall or fly. And then, her voice low, steady. What is it you really want? The question hung there, thick as smoke. And I couldn't answer. Not yet. The next week, she wasn't there. Not at the wine bar. Not outside the laundromat. Not even the grocery store. I told myself it was coincidence. People had lives, routines. They shifted without warning. But after a few days, the silence started to feel deliberate. I almost texted, except I didn't have her number. All I had was the memory of chamomile steam, the way her hand had hovered near mine, the question she'd left hanging, what is it you really want? I kept replaying it. Each time, the answer changed. Each time, I said nothing. Then I saw her again. Not in the places I expected, but outside my building. She was talking to someone. A man, older, dressed sharp, the kind of confidence that fills a sidewalk. He carried himself like he belonged near her. They weren't close, but close enough. She laughed at something he said, softer than the laugh she'd given me. And then, as if on instinct, her eyes lifted, caught me watching from the window above. We locked for half a second. Then she looked away. That night, I sat at my desk, half writing a message I couldn't send. Good to see you earlier. Delete. You okay? Delete. I miss, delete. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. The days after, she passed me once in the stairwell. She was polite, nothing more. A nod, a faint smile, eyes already somewhere else. I wanted to ask. Wanted to corner the silence, and make it give me answers. But I couldn't. Because what if the answer was simple? What if I'd only been a distraction, a moment she let herself borrow before reality pulled her back? One evening, I walked past the wine bar. She was there, seated with the same two friends. I thought she might look up, notice me, gesture me over like before. But she didn't. She stayed angled toward them, her hand resting near her glass, the space I once imagined mine untouched. I didn't go in. Just stood across the street, long enough for the ache to settle in my chest, then walked home. At my door, I thought about knocking on hers. Just once. No words prepared, no plan. Just knock, let her open it, see what happened. I lifted my hand, stared at the wood between us, and let it fall back to my side. Inside, my phone sat on the table, screen dark. No messages. I thought about sending one anyway, something simple, something that wouldn't sound like too much. But my thumb hovered, the words caught in drafts, never leaving the screen. And so the seat across from me stayed empty. The tea went cold. And the sentence remained unfinished. It happened on a Thursday night. Not planned, not dramatic. Just the kind of evening when the streets were too quiet, the air too cool to pretend summer was still holding on. I found her sitting on the bench outside her building, jacket wrapped around her, eyes fixed on nothing. I almost walked past. Almost. But something about the way she sat, still but unsettled, made me stop. Evening, I said. She looked up, startled, then softened. Evening. I stood there, unsure if I should stay. She patted the space beside her. Small gesture. But it felt like an opening. I sat. Silence stretched, the kind that pressed into ribs. You've been. I started, then stopped. My throat tightened. Distant. Her jaw shifted. She didn't answer right away. Finally. I thought it would be easier if I stepped back. Easier for who? She turned her head toward me, eyes tired. Both of us. I almost laughed, but it caught somewhere bitter. Doesn't feel easier. Her hands were folded in her lap. She tightened them, then loosened, as if deciding whether to risk honesty. That man you saw. Outside your place. He's my ex. He thinks there's still a chance. And maybe part of me wanted to believe it. Stability, history, the safe choice. I nodded, slow, careful. My chest felt heavy. And me? Her breath shook a little. You're not safe. Not the way he is. She glanced down, then up again, her eyes wet but steady. You make me feel like I could start over. And I don't know if I can. Not at my age. Not with everything behind me. I stared at the ground, shoes scuffing the pavement. The truth lodged itself somewhere sharp. So I'm what? Younger, temporary, a mistake waiting to happen? She flinched. No. Don't think that. It's not about you being younger. It's about me being afraid. I looked at her then. Really looked. The way her shoulders curved inward, how she pressed her lips together like holding herself in place. I'm afraid too, I admitted. My voice almost broke. Every time I walk away, I wonder if it's the last time. If I'll only have scraps of you to remember. And I don't even know if I'm allowed to want more. Her eyes closed, just for a second, like my words landed too close. Then she exhaled, long, shaky. You are, she whispered. The silence that followed wasn't empty anymore. It was full. Waiting. She reached, hesitated, then finally let her hand rest against mine. Not a grab. Not a claim. Just presence. Warmth. I turned my palm up, fingers brushing hers. She didn't pull away. No kiss. No promises. Just that quiet, human weight of touch between us. I looked at her, searching. She met my eyes, tired but unguarded. Okay, she said softly. And it was enough. Time didn't shift all at once. It bent in small ways. At first, nothing seemed different. We still crossed paths in passing, the laundromat, the corner store, the narrow stairwell where someone always had to step aside. But something had loosened. A glance lasted longer. A pause wasn't so sharp. Then it became routine. Not dramatic. Just natural. She'd bring down a thermos of chamomile when I was late folding laundry. I'd leave her a coffee, black, the way she pretended not to like but always finished anyway, on the bench outside her building at 8:47 a.m. sharp, because she noticed details like that. We didn't label it. We didn't need to. There were still days of distance. She'd close herself off, retreat into quiet, and I'd feel that old ache of being left outside. And there were days when I wondered if the weight of years between us would tilt things out of balance. But then she'd knock on my door, not always with words, sometimes just with a look, and it was enough. I learned the rhythm of her silences. She learned the shape of my hesitations. Somewhere in the middle, we built something that didn't ask for more than we could give. One evening, months later, we sat again on that bench. Same spot, same cool air brushing past. Only this time, her jacket rested against mine, and our hands found each other without the stutter of decision. "Funny," she said, watching the street. "I used to hate this bench. Always felt like I was waiting for something that never came. And now?" She leaned her head back, eyes closing. "Now it feels like I've already arrived." I didn't answer. Didn't need to. The dryers still hummed late into the night. The railing upstairs still caught at my ankle every morning. Life didn't fix itself. It just softened. And in that softness, I stopped feeling like I was paused. I don't know if it was love in the way people usually mean it. It was quieter than that. Less a fire, more a steady flame someone shielded with their hands. On mornings when I caught her eye at 8:47 sharp, coffee in one hand, thermos in the other, we didn't speak. But we smiled. Just enough to carry us through. That's how I knew, whatever it was ours. And it was enough. Sparkles, did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?